Building muscle after bariatric surgery? Check. Looking like you actually lift? Check. But what happens when your brain needs time to catch up to your new physique? My returning client, Allan, has crushed his muscle building goals, but now he's navigating something a bit trickier. That mental adjustment period where you know you look better but don't always feel it. Today, we're doing live coaching on his current cut strategy, tackling the post-bulk mindset challenges, and figuring out his next steps. If you've ever felt that disconnect between how you look and how you feel, this conversation is going to have some gold for you today. Welcome to Wits and Weights, the show that helps you build a strong, healthy physique using evidence, engineering, and efficiency. I'm your host, Philip Pape, and today I'm doing something a bit different. We're doing another focused coaching session, this time with Allan, who was on the show way back in episode 77, talking about his journey with emotional eating and bariatric surgery. So go check that out for the backstory. But Allan has been very busy since then. He has successfully built visible muscle mass. He's flipped around his relationship with food. Now he's dealing with what I call the good problems, like how to cut strategically after successfully bulking, and that weird mental space where you've transformed your physique, but your brain is still kind of catching up. So today's conversation is more coaching focused as we work through his current challenges in real time. We're talking about his pretty aggressive fat loss timeline, the post-bulk mindset hurdles, and of course, mapping out his next phase. Allan, are you ready to do this?
Yes, indeed.
All right. So people now say that you look like you train, like you lift,
yes,
and that you've added visible muscle mass, and I definitely can see it, and you've sent me before after photos, and it's incredible. But you've said you don't recognize yourself in the mirror, but in a good way, right?
Right.
How are you feeling right now about the new you?
Surprised and learning to accept it. I think learning to accept it is a great pivotal point for discussion, because I have to give myself grace. I have to allow I have to allow for my transformation that's occurred over the past couple of years. This is not something that happens within 3 months' time.
Yeah.
So for example, my expenditure my daily, expenditure for maintenance was about $1,380 back when we did our last podcast in June of 2023. And now I'm pushing $1,600 now in terms of my expenditure. So yeah. When I look in the mirror or I look at a photo of me, sometimes I feel like, adolescents go through something when they're 14, 15, they look in the mirror and they go, is this what I look like now? So I recently looked at some photos of myself and it was like, it's just a very, very visible reminder of that I've achieved a certain physique and wellness, because I look healthy. That's the most important thing.
You do. So, super vibrant, clear skin, glowing smile. It's all there.
We all try to take care of ourselves, Philip.
Exactly. That's what we're about. And so I like something you mentioned already, because we get into numbers, we get into data. I think that's important to just peel back reality. We were talking earlier about on a Physique University coaching call about reality versus fantasy. And we all have these projections of ourselves from the past and into the future. And you look at something like your metabolism now is 250 or 300 calories more than it was. And that's your kind of maintenance calories that have gone up by that much. And there's an episode I did not long ago, and it was inspired by you, on what to do with a slow metabolism, because people compare their metabolisms to others. And unfortunately, that can be very difficult when your metabolism's low, but you've got to compare it to yourself of the past, right? And it sounds like that's one concrete change that you've noticed. What are some other, in the last 2 or 3 years, concrete changes that you've noticed?
Chest size, arm size, strength, concrete changes. I think in terms of in terms of coaching, in terms of everything that we've touched upon, I think one thing is that my sleep hygiene has been a lot better. I definitely have a sleep routine, and I get 6 to 7.5 hours at night. I'd say physically, my legs are solid. Sometimes I sit in a chair and my jeans are stretched and my legs are all swollen, and it's not fat.
It's swole, man. It's
Yeah,
swole.
right? So I'm like, "What did I do in the gym to deserve these legs today?"
Oh
So
man.
so my forearms are stronger. One thing, so through training, the consistency and variety of exercises that I've done over the past couple of years have strengthened my weakest parts. So my forearms used to always give way. Now they don't. My adductor muscles used to give me issues, but I've learned to warm up and I've learned to be smart and wise about the weight that I apply for myself and when. So these are all changes that some of it's mindfulness, but it translates into physicality, if that makes sense.
100%. And I didn't mean to limit concrete to just physical,
Right,
right? Because there are concrete mental
right,
changes, which we're going to dive into some of that. I want to get into it.
right.
And that's actually a good segue because you wrote me something that I'm really curious about, that you recognize your feeling of being fat, because you acknowledge that sometimes you feel that way because for
Yes,
whatever reason, as actually a fallacy, despite needing to drop some body fat, maybe objectively. And so I think this is a very mature self awareness about this mental lag that we wanted to talk about today, this mental lag behind the physical transformation. And maybe it'll always be there, right? We're not saying that it's a good or bad thing and it's going to just go away. How are you processing that disconnect between the two?
it gives me a more comfortable resting place, so to speak, like more comfortable and safer foundation. So even though I definitely have belly fat, without a doubt, all right, and I have some adipose tissue, I always joke around with my trainers, I'm strong underneath this layer, you know. But seriously, so in terms of the question, um, it gives me a safe platform to work for medically. I definitely would benefit to lose another 10 pounds. It's not a whole lot, but my doctor said,
Be specific on that. Yeah.
okay,
What do you
so
mean?
my
Yeah.
doctor said that when I was 172 when I saw him, and he said, Allan, he goes, if you lose 5%, I think he said, then certain markers that you have that are very minimal, but they will go away, will organ fat, like liver fat, stuff like that. He said, you're very minimal. He said, but if you get down to 160, it'll be gone. And then if you lose, and if you had other scarring issues or anything else, which I don't have, if he gave me another number to go to, he said, but this 160, he said, would be the place that he would want to see me. Similarly, my cardiologist likes me at that weight as well. My bariatric doctor is another story. Last time I saw him, he said, Allan, he goes, you can't go by the scale.
Mm-hmm.
He said, Allan, he said, he goes, yes, you can lose some weight. You definitely have gained some weight, but some of that is muscle. He said, ideally, I'd like to see you like closer in the lower 160s. That's kind of where his mind is. He said, but you have to also, the bottom line is that you have to see your body composition. He said, that's going to determine what scale weight you end up at.
That is the biggest misconception we have to deal with on this show, I think, and in general in the fitness industry, right? Is that dichotomy between weight and health, and where there's sometimes a correlation for sure.
Right.
Like if you go from 400 pounds to 200 pounds, I don't care how you did it. Even if you've lost a bunch of muscle, you're probably going to be far healthier.
Right.
Regardless, like there's cases where that's necessary. And then there's other cases like yours where you're kind of in the optimization point here where honestly, you're probably right now fitter than, 95% of guys your age. I mean, I don't know what percent, if you've looked at percentiles of your blood work or anything, you've got to be up there.
My blood work is fine. My
Yeah.
blood work is good. My blood work
Yeah.
is fine.
Yeah.
My testosterone is actually in there as well. I mean, I'm okay. Just genetics. So
Mhm.
cholesterol issues. Like there are markers that I need to be aware of, just based on family history and my own history. And my A1C is still low. It's
Good.
like
Okay.
5.3. That's all. That doesn't move too much. So I'm good. So that's it. So I feel like I definitely want to drop to 160. I will feel better in my skin for sure, Philip. I'm 5'4", 10 pounds on a 5'4" frame is pretty decent. In terms of me where my fat is, I definitely see a difference.
100%. If I didn't
Right.
know you and you said, and you told me your height and weight, I would generally say for like, let's say a younger guy in his 20s and 30s who's 5'9", you'd want him to be packing on some muscle and pushing 200, but then leaning out to like 180 or something like that, right? In general, that's what a lot of guys want to be. So to want to be 160, 170, given your history, given your, age and everything else, passes the sniff test. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, I know you, I see you, you're like a stocky, muscular guy now.
Yes.
I mean that as a compliment, and it everybody's different, right? Everybody's different. So before we get into that situation about, what you're doing now, what's working, what's not working. Just one real quick thing to tie our last history from our conversation from a couple of years ago, emotional eating. You've said that your relationship with food has become so much easier. You're not avoiding carbs. You love meal prepping. You're posting all the time, like wonderful recipes and things like that, and helping others in the community too. Like, here's what you can do. Here's some ideas. How has this supported what you're doing and become kind of more positive with your health? The idea of food and your relationship with food.
So emotional eating really doesn't go away. It's more of an understanding of everything. In terms of, can you clarify the question again?
It was a very badly worded question. So
there's a lot of avenues I could take, but what would you like me to talk about exactly?
I would like you to talk about how this shift in your relationship with food has supported your success over the last 2 or 3 years.
Yes. Okay.
Let's go with that.
That's it, baby. So yes. So my relationship with food has supported me. I've learned how to eat again, Philip. Okay. I've learned that I could have my sourdough bread as long as it's sliced and portion controlled. And I'm not eating a half a loaf, although I could eat a half a loaf of sourdough bread. It's not a big deal, but in the general scheme of things, it's not a practice. So to be honest, I love going food shopping. I love meal prep. It's a form of creative nurturing, even though my recipes are kind of standard. The fact that I can take a Sunday morning and meal prep, just a whole array of different things: fish, chicken, my eggs and egg scramble with vegetables, sweet potatoes if I want potatoes during the week. It's just a nice nurturing thing. I enjoy food. I don't look at food as something to fill a void. I look at it in terms of a physical need. And sometimes training, which is another subject we can get into, sometimes my training dictates my desire for food more than my emotionality does now. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, you're saying food, it isn't filling an emotional void anymore. It's a practical thing for your body, for your training, for your needs, for your nutrition, and you enjoy the nurturing aspect of making it.
Right. But I will say this, that there are times when I'm taxed. For example, if a relative is in the hospital and those vending machines at Lorna Doones are calling me. It's like, all I want to do is have a Lorna Doone package. All I want is, but then I go to the machine and I look at all the garbage in the machine and I was like, do I really want this? Let me wait a half an hour, go to the cafeteria downstairs, and they have like chickpea salads with arugula, and they have other things that I could eat instead of running to the vending machine. So if I'm hungry and I feel like I want to eat emotionally or physically at that moment in the hospital, I will try to make the best choices that will fill my gut, satisfy my need to eat something, but do it in the realm of adequate nutrition instead of Lorna Doone cookies. Not that there's anything wrong with Lorna Doone.
No. Yeah. I had a music teacher in high school who loved them. Lorna Doone the shortbread. But what I'm hearing is you've, over time and after doing the work, you've gotten to a place where you make choices that are aligned with what you want, and it's not always what somebody on the outside would call the perfect choice, because there's no such thing. It's the best choice available to you in the moment. And we were kind of talking about that, about all or nothing thinking earlier.
Yes.
Right? That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
Philip, that was a great summation. You're absolutely on point with that. Yes.
It's a modicum of control that you didn't have before. And really, anyone listening, that's what we're trying to get to, is like, how do you have control over the situation in some way, more than you do today? Right.
A lot of times I'll cook up, if I know I'm going to be at the hospital that week for a few days, I'll boil up a dozen hard-boiled eggs. Mm-hmm. And I'll have those to eat, in the hospital. They're ready to go and transportable. Cool. So it's a matter, you're right. So you brought that back to me, because it is a matter of making choices. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good. So this kind of sets the foundation. Now you alluded to a weight and a body composition goal.
Right.
What are you just give us a brief overview of what are you doing now that's kind of working, and feel free to mention anything that you feel is not working, just high level with your overall routine.
Okay. What's working is my workout in the gym. I did about 3-4 months of ironclad, built on 2 pounds of muscle. Really, through a scan that might be accurate, might not be, but at least there's some visible muscle growth.
You
And
said
now
you said 2 pounds, 2 pounds
I've
of
got
muscle.
2 pounds.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's good. And you already had a good foundation. And just
yeah.
so the listener knows, Ironclad, it's like an undulating wave based, volume based program that I kind of stole from Alex Bromley. Just so people know what Ironclad
Okay,
is.
okay. So now I'm training a little differently. I'm training with a trainer, and it's more about hypertrophy. It's more about going to failure with 15 reps type of deal.
Mhm.
Okay. And doing like 10 sets a week on a muscle group. That's that same paradigm, but just it's making me hungry as anything.
Okay.
So the gym is working really well, really well. My arms, I mean, I feel the physicality, I feel safe, and I feel worked. However, I leave the gym, man, and I'm like, where's my apricots, where's my carbs, where's my this, where's my that? And it's like I've got to rein that in. That is where my difficulty lies right now.
And
Because
do you feel like that the change is strictly from the training approach or the fact that you've been uh, in a deficit?
both.
Yeah.
Both. I think that my deficit, based upon my new maintenance, Philip, this is something you can eyeball and we could discuss. So, like, instead of having a 1,400 or 1,500 maintenance, my maintenance is now pushing probably over 1,600. By the time macro factor catches up, the way it's going up every week, I'm going to end up around 1,650, I think. So in that regard, that 1,100, that that darn 1,100 or 1,150 that I see in terms of my goal at 0.8 pounds a week might be too stiff.
Isn't that amazing? Like that is fun. That is a phenomenon that I want people to understand. The hunger, assuming it's true physiological hunger, because for you, it probably is at this point. You've normalized your signals. You eat quite a healthy dietary pattern overall. That's satiating. Is pretty much just telling you need to eat more. The question is, do you kind of fight it, to maintain a bigger deficit, or do you rise with it a bit to maintain what you were kind of used to? It gives you a few more options, but we always think in terms of sustainability. So are you letting it rise or are you fighting it?
I'm letting it rise.
Okay. And you're
I'm
still
letting it,
having the same progress
and
because
I'm
the
still,
deficit's the same.
and I'm losing weight. Like
Yeah.
last week. Last week I definitely ate in maintenance. Maybe if my true maintenance is about 1,650, I'm eating 100 calories, a little over that or around there, no more than 100 calories up, and I'm losing half a pound a week.
So because you mentioned one of your struggles now after bulking is the your brain telling you want to eat more because you were eating more, and
Yes,
yet you need to be in a deficit. This sounds like it's maybe helping.
it might be.
Yeah.
Looking at the new data, Philip, you're absolutely correct, and I'm glad we're talking about this because I kind of felt that maybe you would see it that way. I envisioned our conversation talking about this. So yes, so it's
Let's
helping. It's
let's
helping.
take a step back. Okay, but hold on. Let's take a step back. How long were you at maintenance after the bulk?
Oh, by default or by no, seriously, I would say a few weeks. I mean, I after my bulk, it must have been. It was a while. It was a period of at least 3 weeks.
Was it long enough to feel normalized at that
Oh
maintenance?
yes, 100%.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. Again, sometimes when you switch fast, which I've done just because I'm impatient, when you switch quickly, you could like really throw off the hunger
Right,
signals and then
right.
have that issue.
But what kicked off my expenditure rising, oddly enough, is I mean it is summer, so I'm gardening, I'm out a little more, I'm definitely getting steps in. Um, is the rapid fat loss challenge. My expenditure during during those 2 weeks rose like 30 points. I mean, it's just the graph went like that during the rapid fat loss phase. And I think it was in tandem with my increase in activity.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say that you wouldn't expect that, and also it's too short a period, but that makes sense if you
Right.
had more activity.
Right.
Unless, man, we're discovering weird little mechanisms all the time regarding refeeds, and how some people on a certain refeed schedule can get some little boost in their metabolism. But I don't want to overthink that. So
No, let's not
yeah,
overthink it. But I definitely think that there was something cool that happened during that rapid fat loss phase where I lost weight, but my expenditure was going up. I was still lifting. I was still, it was still working. After that, I have been on maintenance since, even though technically I'm on a deficit. Some days I'm in a deficit, but if you look at my weekly calories, they're averaging about 1,700 calories a day.
so are you on pace at that 0.8 pounds a week?
I've been losing a half a pound a week.
Half a pound. Okay. So I know you want to get another like 9 pounds off, and at 0.8, that would take like 11, 12 weeks. But if you assume less, it could take 16. And it is June already. So let's talk realistic expectations, because I think you mentioned something like August,
The
wanting
end
to
of
get
August,
there.
yeah.
But that's only 8 weeks. Oh, end of August, that's 10 weeks. Yeah, you're kind of in the ballpark. I mean, it's not too far. If you ended up at like 163, would that be at the end of the world?
Not at all.
Okay.
It would be the world.
Okay. Okay. So it's a stretch goal. That's good. It's a stretch goal.
160 is a stretch goal. 162 is fine also. I want to be as far away as from 170 for medical reasons, not physique reasons, although could be, that's a separate issue. But
I got it.
I want to be there.
Okay. So so there's some really good directional things going on with you. Obviously your expenditure going up, potentially due to your NEAT. You're at a modestly aggressive deficit. I wouldn't say it's too aggressive. I mean, I know your history at even half a pound to 0.8 pounds, as long as you're hovering at 1,100 calories or more, that makes sense. And then, are there any, given your past fat loss phases, do you foresee any type of resistance or expenditure drop that you would predict from the past?
No, not
Okay.
at this time of the year, and definitely not.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
And is there any other lever? Are there any other levers we haven't already pulled? Because you're pretty solid all around the board with your habits.
That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there is.
What is it?
There might be a couple, and it's a good question.
See, this is a coaching, man. I don't tell you what to do. I just ask you to tell yourself what to do.
Yeah. No, but the levers are there. The levers are there. So the levers that I have been picking up are steps. You have spoken on some of your podcasts. Other people speak about, man, if you don't get those steps in, it's a big game changer. Those 10,000 to 12,000 steps are game changers in terms of expenditure, in terms of weight loss. So that's number one. So I've pulled that lever recently, even more so. The other lever is, Philip, I have a hard time with grazing. And this is not a physical lever. This is not an action lever. This is a strategy lever that needs to be addressed, that I have a problem with. I have a problem with grazing, and I could easily keep my expenditure to 1,400. If I had to be at 1,400, I mean, not my expenditure, my deficit at 1,400, I could do it. But it's the grazing that tweaks it into maintenance and takes me off target a little.
Okay, let's put a pin in that for a second. Steps you mentioned as a lever. You're more active. Do you have any long stretches of sitting?
I try not to, but yes, I think probably I would say living room time, maybe 3 hours a day. Yes, in the morning when I get up, I'm sitting at my desk going through emails and everything with coffee for about an hour, and then I get to the gym. So I would say I'm sitting for. I would say I would say I'm sitting maybe 4 hours a day for sure.
Is it mostly contiguous, or do you take breaks?
I do take breaks. I go out and I garden and I do things. My watch says time to stand. But yeah, at times, and there's also also I'm up really early in the morning. So some days if I go to sleep early, I wake up early, and sometimes I'll take a 45-minute nap in the afternoon. So that's so late afternoon. I might take like a half an hour snooze or something like that. But basically, so that's part of my resting of the day. So
Okay.
yeah,
It's good. I'm not, yeah. And by the way, I'm not going to take away naps. Naps are great.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. But that's it.
yeah.
But that's it. So that's the Go ahead, Philip.
I was just going to say, like, so this is a big tease for the audience. The next episode after this is about walking breaks and how impactful it is on muscle protein synthesis, as well as like insulin sensitivity and how your body uses nutrients. And so I always think if there are windows on a daily basis where you could take breaks like every half hour, throw those in, add some reminders, do a little, it's an easy thing to tweak in your day to day. And who knows if it'll have an impact on your metabolism, right?
Yeah,
That's my thought.
I mean, I was thinking about bringing the elliptical into the living room.
Yeah. Well, I was asking in the
know?
Facebook group about those elliptical
Yeah,
on the ground things because
yeah,
I think there's something to be said about like blood flow. Blood flow is a big piece of it,
right.
honestly. Okay, so let's talk about grazing. So I know you're pretty, I'll say, advanced in terms of the psychology of some of this stuff. Like, what's step one when we have an issue with emotional eating? It's the trigger, right? Identify the root trigger or the cause. What's your thought on that? Like emotional, environmental, physiological, what causes you to graze?
The feeling like I need to eat because I'm lifting weights.
That's an interesting one because there could be some reality to it, right? Like,
Yes.
like genuine hunger. Your protein's pretty high, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the timing of this grazing? Because grazing to me seems like all day, but potentially there's specific times.
Okay. So I usually have lunch about 11:30, 12 o'clock. And by 2 o'clock, I want more protein and carbohydrates. So I'll have something then, and then I'll eat around 5 o'clock.
Okay. When's the grazing occur?
The grazing occurs around 2. Oh, grazing. 2 to 3, 2 to 4, and then from 6:30 till 8:30 if I don't stay out of the kitchen.
Okay. And do you use meal timing, like timed meals is what I mean? Like, do you have a schedule for your meals?
Unofficially, yes.
Unofficially, which implies there's some wiggle room.
Yeah.
In other words, I'm going through my brain of like, what are you not already doing that could be a simple tool to kind of help with this? Because again, my philosophy on emotional eating is start simple, start small, start easy to try to address it before going deeper and deeper into the psychology, which, you're an expert in psychology, right? Like it's in your background and I'm still learning about this stuff, but honestly, that helps. So like if you had that spacing awareness via a structured eating window or schedule, could that help?
That would help, but it's not the answer. I think
Okay.
I'm listening to you. I'm listening to what you're saying. And in my mind, I'm going through this idea that sometimes I think that what I was thinking, maybe psychologically, if macrofactor is telling me that I need to be around 1,200 calories, in reality, I may need to be around 1,400, let's say, for a deficit, or 1,300, let's say.
Okay, stop there.
I'm
Stop there.
feeling the
Stop
hungry.
there. Stop there. Stop there. So are you saying that the grazing has only started recently because of that?
Yes.
Okay. Then that sounds more logistical. I guess what I would say is do the homework of eating more, which isn't a hard assignment, and report back on whether the grazing goes away. Because if that's all it is, that's real hunger.
Right. So with the grazing, I'm still
Yeah.
losing a half a pound a week.
Yeah.
So it's just very interesting. So here I have the macrofactor numbers in front of me, and I honor that, but then at the same time, it's like, darn, I want a nectarine. Like I want a nectarine and a banana, or I see I'm craving like fruit. And then I'll have chicken in the fridge, and I'll say, you know what? I'm going to have 3 or 4 ounces of chicken now, and I'll have the fish for dinner. So so my body is kind of telling me like I need those 200 calories extra during the afternoon.
Yes, and this is why I'm asking you to be more intentional now. I think the quote unquote answer, since you said that, like that's not the, I think the answer is to be intentional about what you want to do. Do you want to add the calories in deliberately, and then you just be intentional, like you know how to do, or and we talked about this earlier, like do you want to fight it or not? And it's okay if you want to fight it, we could do that. In which case we're talking about satiation, like all the things already know and probably have built in, having a pre-planned snack budget so that when the craving comes, you can flex into it. Gamifying habit stacking, taking a pause and drinking water, right? Like all the
Yes.
techniques,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But maybe you don't need any of them if you just say, know what, I'm going to eat 200 more calories, and this is when it's going to happen every day. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And it makes sense. Yes, it does make sense. I'm going to refigure my macro factor and see what it tells me. And I'm going to discuss it, show you. I think the expenditure, because it's still on the increase, is cutting me short a little bit.
It's lagging. Yeah,
Yes,
it's lagging.
it's lagging. I think that's what's happening, and that's why I'm hungry.
Okay, and that's a good one. The good thing you mentioned there, because traditionally in a bulking phase, I see this all the time, right? Where your expenditures estimated at a number and it's rising pretty fast. And so because macro factors in a lagging algorithm based on historical data, it's not going to give you, 300 more calories overnight. It's going to just titrate you up. But if your metabolism is going up too fast, you never catch up and then you're always hungry. And that's why I would tell clients, like, I need you to eat 200 more calories pronto. So it can happen in a deficit like you as well if your expenditure is going up. And so I would just split the difference. I would say, okay, if you've been grazing and getting in 200 more calories, maybe deliberately add 100 more calories and kind of split that difference right now, and then let the app kind of bring you up on top of that.
That makes wonderful sense, Philip.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Good.
wonderful. It makes wonderful sense. And I was thinking, waiting to discuss this with you, and I wanted to hear your decision on this and your wisdom on this. And you are so in sync with what feels right to me.
Good. I mean, my other option was going to be a detox juice cleanse combined with intermittent fasting. So I'm like, if one doesn't work, we'll try the other.
I'll take out my omega juicer.
We'll try the coffee enema, right?
Yeah. No, seriously, no. But I was looking forward to this coaching call, and I wanted to hear your solution. And you just said it, and it's beautiful. It makes total sense, and it fits in. Once again, it fits into what I intuitively know about what I'm doing. And you're eyeballing everything, and discussion really was right on point with me. So I appreciate it.
Would you say that's your biggest bottleneck at the moment? Or
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
The other things are just last summer I was in the hospital with my dad pretty much from the end of June all the way through probably till October or November, September, so through September. So this summer I decided that I'm going to enjoy the summer. My dad as well. He's stable. Everything's good. I'm going to have the summer I didn't have last summer. So I'm out bicycle riding. I'm walking, seeing friends, doing things, instead of being in the hospital every day or every other day. So that's why it's not my why, but it's my conscious way of living right now is to get out and do things and enjoy life.
Which potentially reduces your stress as well.
Yes.
Right. And could also contribute to the physiological change. Not to bring it back to that, I want to acknowledge that you've been through a rough time, right? It sounds like everything you told me from last year, and you're taking advantage of the new environment and situation now. And
Right.
honestly, makes you a role model too for everyone around you, and allows you to support them the way I see it. So
Right.
it's a very positive thing.
Right. I have family, it's just everything is good. I still have concerns, I still have family responsibilities, but I'm able now to take care of myself. In fact, my father also says he wants, he's expressed multiple times that I need to come take care of myself. If I visit him twice, like, if I visit him on a Monday and I go on again on Tuesday, he says, "Why are you here again, Allan?" He said, "Go home, enjoy your family, enjoy everything. You don't have to come every day." So I was like, "Okay, Dad, you're feeling well. then you're absolutely correct.
That's nice. That's
You
nice.
know, so it gives me, he wants me to take care of myself and I tell him, I said, Dad, I wanted to let you know that even though, I'm here a lot and I want you to know I'm exercise every day. I'm watching when I'm eating. I'm taking really good care of myself because my parents always, that was kind of like always ingrained in us to be healthy, take care of ourselves, not at the exclusion of other people, but we should not get sick over taking care of other people.
I agree. It's funny you mentioned that. Not to the exclusion of other things. One of our other members, I'm not going to name his name just for privacy, but you would know him. He sent me an Instagram reel, and he's like, "Is this really what people are thinking now?" And it was this guy. It was a comedian, stand-up comedian, talking about how like if a father has big muscles, he must not be a great dad because the time it takes to like be in the gym, he's not using those muscles to play with his kids. And I'm like, it's sad, right? That no, I get it because it's like the biggest common denominator when it comes to comedy, and I totally get it. I love stand-up comedy, and it's like a relatable thing because 90% of people probably aren't working out, but you mentioned, you hit it right in the head where no, it's the thing that allows you to show up and be there.
Right.
And that's great. So, okay, I want to stay on point now with some of the things you've got going on into the next 6 months, because we kind of tackled up till now. We talked about your current deficit. I think you also mentioned that after that you want to maintain and then go into another bulk. Is that right?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Do you think you're going to approach it differently than the last one?
Wow, that causes me to pause. That's a great question.
Or should you? Or is it going to be exactly the same and
No,
there's no
no,
right
no,
answer?
no. I'm going to be wiser. I think I know what a bulk is about now. I know how I feel physiologically. I'm very much in tune with it. When I lift weights, like I'm very much in tune with my body, how it feels, how it responds to progressive overload, and visibly what happens to me. So it's been a while, and I think I'm wiser. This next bulk is going to be, the maintenance is going to be maintenance, and maybe I may do, depending on where my weight stays, I'll be either at the lower end or the higher end. But when I bulk, it's going to be great because I know the foods that will fuel me, and I'll know if I'm gaining too much weight too quickly or actually more fat. I would have to qualify that. I know now what my body starts doing when it gains too much fat over muscle, and I'll be able to work with you and play it, every month or every couple of months, check in with you and say, this is what's happening. I feel good. Or I may say, these extra 300 calories I have might be a little too much for me now. And then it's something we can't predict. Let's see what happens.
That is no truer statement. For anyone listening who has been or has never been through cut and bulk cycles, every single one is different. And if you try to predict from the past, you're just going to be frustrated because it could be and it's not that it's better or worse. It just, you respond differently. You're a different person physically when you start the next cut and environmentally and all that lifestyle. Tell me what would success look like for you in this next bulk?
I'm looking at my biceps right now.
Are they nice and cut now? Because you're
I want to get these biceps cut. No, seriously. What would it feel? What it would be? More health. I think underneath it all, ties into my why, or my deeper why, is to keep myself mentally and physically sturdy, to repair where I've come from, and to continue to build solidity in health as I'm approaching my upper 60s. So I think that is where I'd like to be. I think when I envision a bulk, Philip, I envision doing exercises and movements that are safe, that are taxing, because the bulking is definitely like, you want to do those, because I might tap into more strength training at that time, with the more calories. And I think that the bulking will also have an effect on my metabolism. I think as I'm getting older, I think A1C in my family increases, And I think that will continue to offset the any kind of sugar metabolism issues that may be happening.
Ooh, that's good. Okay, so you've got a lot there. I want to break each one down.
Sure, Philip.
You mentioned muscle is health. I don't think you said it literally, but that's what I got from that. And that's
Yes.
such an important message for anyone listening that okay, if you have excess weight to lose, fine. You can work on that. But also you gotta have the muscle. Muscle is health. Like you said, it makes you sturdy. It helps you connect with the why of being there for your grandchildren, enjoying all the years ahead. Because when you say you're approaching late 60s, and I think of the condition of some people in their 70s, I just have to say, like, congrats, Allan, on the work you've put in, because it's demonstrating you've turned back the clock by 15, 20 years where you are right now, easily. You know what I mean? Like, you're operating where like some 50-year-olds who haven't taken care of themselves are. I mean, you're operating better than that, but you know what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying.
And then you said you want to repair where you've come from. I want to dig into that just to one more level deep. What do you mean by that?
Physically, I was 220 pounds before I had bariatric surgery. I went down to like 160 when I was in my 40s, and then I gained weight. When the kids, came to live with us, I became daddy again, and I cooked. And who went to the gym? I was a daddy. It's like I had no time to go to the gym. But eventually, I've always, even though I was through being a spin instructor and teaching yoga, I still was always on the bigger size, more of a heavier weight. And then back in 2020, I reached like 220 again. And so in terms of weight, I don't want to go back there. But when I made that statement, Philip, that I want to repair, what did you say to me?
Repair where I've come from is what you said.
So my mom passed away. This is a deep why, and I'm sharing this. Maybe it could help somebody. That's the only reason I'm sharing this. My world fell apart. When you have parents and you have arguments and you have, love relationships, but it's I love my parents. I love my mom, and we had a wonderful relationship. But when she got sick and she passed away, everything changed. My whole perspective on life changed, and my heart broke. I was there when she passed away. She called me to come. So it was like that trauma and working through it is something that I'm realizing I'm picking up all the pieces now. So by doing the cardio, to having fun with sprinting, having fun on a spin bike, again, listening to music again, getting out for walks, enjoying family, enjoying life, I'm putting all the pieces together again. So a bulk signifies me going to a next phase of health, of solidity, and putting things back in place. And enjoying life with the blessings. I mean, all around, without getting spiritual or anything. That's just kind of that's it.
So, yeah. Sounds like you've carried your mother's influence with you forward in a meaningful way. It made it really mean something, is what I'm hearing, and
yes.
Has made it a source of strength and motivation for you. Is that fair assessment?
Yes. And my grandma, her mother, when I was heavier back in the 1990s, she said to me in the kitchen one day, "Allan, take care of yourself because nobody else will." So both, I've always had a history of, I don't know, just in general, we've always just taken care of myself, I guess, is a mantra that's in my head. Allan, take care of yourself. That's it.
That sounds like exactly what you took from it and what you're doing. I mean, you're doing that. Everybody gets to hear you talk about this. And even though we get into nuts and bolts and fun sciencey stuff and how to do calorie deficits and everything, at the end of the day, I think we're just saying, look, this is our one and only life, and we can do something to enjoy it. And the process of doing that can be enjoyable. Like, I think a lot of what you're doing and sharing with the audience about emotional eating and lifting and everything, sure, there's challenges, but it sounds like you've really embraced it. It doesn't sound like someone who's sees this as a form of suffering or a form of sacrifice. You know what I mean? Even though it's hard it's hard in a fulfilling way, right? And
Right.
that's the human struggle. Okay. And then you mentioned this is really great for our older lifters who are worried about injury. And you mentioned doing things that are safe, but also taxing. Again, I love that juxtaposition as well, because that's exactly how I would put it. It's like we need to lift heavy as we get older to support our spine, to support our hormones and health, but people want to do it safely. What does that mean for you?
Form.
Okay. Form and technique.
Yep. Total
100%.
form, technique, and warming up. If there's one thing I could share, no matter what kind of, because form, Philip, you put on form videos, people can get form videos elsewhere, even in their gym. But the most important thing, I think, as we get older is the warming up. Okay. I messaged you about a half a year ago or a few months ago about my warm up with squats or warm up with whatever. And I forgot exactly what it was, but and you texted me back your typical warm up, type, or what your suggestions. So warming up, I think, is really essential, because the one time that I got injured was the time that I pushed through my warm up, because I had to take my father to a doctor appointment, and I said, "Oh, I could skip." I went up 30 pounds instead of 15, and that's what did it. I was squatting. I was on my way up. It wasn't a crazy amount of weight for other people, but for me, it's my beginning of my working weight at 150 pound squat back then. And I went from like 120, and also the bar wasn't available. So I was working out in a different place in the gym. So all those things came about, and the warm up failed. I didn't warm up, and I pulled my adductor. So I think one thing I'd like to say, I know this was a little rambly, everyone needs to warm up, and then that you can count your working sets and log them in. But the warm-ups behind the scene are probably as important as the form, if not more important.
You just inspired me, man, to do a whole episode about this, because I think you hit on some important factors about warming up. And we're talking about warming up with the lift itself. We're not necessarily talking about like cardio or dynamic warm-ups, just literally the lift itself. You mentioned, or you alluded to the fact that it helps with injury, with safety, with the feel. I would say that it helps program the movement pattern as well, which then kind of gets you into a safe motion before it gets heavier. And then even, your thing about being distracted and like trying to go too quickly, like that's a mindfulness thing. We've got to understand that this is a important thing we're doing. We're lifting a lot of weight and we want to, but you got to feel things out. Also, if you're recovering from an injury, I've definitely told clients to warm up more, because then if they're at the point where they're recovered enough, they'll slowly feel that soreness or pain like dissipate as they warm up.
Yes.
Because you've got that residual pain. Sometimes it's more of a mental pain than anything. But if it still hurts, you'll catch it early in the warm up. You could say, all right, I need to make an adjustment.
Yes. One other thing that I want to hit, Philip, everything you just mentioned is right on point. And in my mind, I just thought about something else, that perhaps warming up is a form check as well. It's a period of time where you're using manageable weight and you can get that proper body angle. If you're doing barbell rows, standing barbell rows, you want to get that perfect angle and that diagonal movement into your belly with the bar. Because you're that kind of like movement and keeping your hands in a certain. So like when you're using lighter weights, you can definitely get your movement intact.
Figured out. 100%. Because it's going to be a little clumsy, that first warm-up set. Even if you're skilled at this, you're like kind of like getting it just right. And then you can say, oh, wait a minute, I'm not tucking the elbows. Well, I'm not doing this or whatever.
Yes.
And you can yeah, exactly.
That's it. And you know what's crazy, Philip? That sometimes it's these little nuances of movement that make all the difference.
It's true. Oh yeah. I preach that to the cows come home, man. Every movement has its a range of things you could do. One more thing you mentioned was you talked about A1C. For those listening, this Friday's episode is coming out with Ben Zeal. Really great guy. I mean, he and I are going to be friends. I could tell already just from having recorded one show together. And he has type 1 diabetes, and it's all about blood sugar management combined with nutrition and training. And we get into A1C, and you mentioned how building, we were talking about your bulk just now, Allan, and you talked about A1C. And I want people to understand the connection is that having more muscle increases insulin sensitivity and blood sugar management, to the point where my belief at this point, Allan, is unless you have a lot of weight to lose, just being active and lifting, you really don't have to worry about blood sugar. You really don't. I mean, eat balanced meals, eat nutritious food, but don't worry about it. You don't even need to measure it unless you've got some, specific issue like diabetes or something. Do you agree with that, or do you find that, is that what you meant by mentioning A1C? Yeah.
I agree. My cardiologist told me, Allan, he goes, I can't believe I have diabetes. And to look at him, you would never know. But he said, Allan, he said, I have, he was diagnosed with diabetes. And he said, you know what was told to me? Lift weights. He goes,
true. It is. It's the solution, man.
He said, Allan, he goes, I have a trainer now and I'm lifting weights. So muscle is a sink for glucose.
Yeah, it's a sink, and the act of training it also uses the glucose and moving and not being sedentary.
I'm going to look forward to that podcast. I'm going to look forward to that. But yes, I definitely feel that the whole constellation, the nutritional approach, plus the lifting weights, plus my walking, it all combines to create a constellation of good health markers. Or better health markers than they would be if I wasn't doing this.
Yeah.
So even though I still have some health markers, they've gone down. I still have things, there are things I have to watch out for, which is, that everyone has medical history, but it's nowhere near where it could be if I wasn't, Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, 100%. And people have to understand it. Yeah. So I think your experience today that you've shared, what you've gone through, what you're going to go through, tells the story itself, makes the convincing case for it. I don't think we have to say to the listener, hey, you need to start lifting weights. Just do what Allan's doing, man, and you're going to be healthy is my take on that. Just start where you're at. What feels most actionable now going forward? What's your biggest takeaway today?
Oh man, my biggest takeaway is having a breather and saying, I don't need to think about 1,200 calories. Maybe I can go to 14. And that to me gives me such a relief because you know me, Philip, I'm so fastidious. So I try to be fastidious, and I was losing it because I was losing that clarity in my focus.
Clarity, confidence and clarity. Yes.
I was losing the clarity.
If someone's listening who has never tracked their food before and has no idea what to do and they're frustrated, that's the same thing. Even if you're not as advanced as where Allan is, just tracking your food and knowing what your expenditure is gives you the clarity, at least know, oh, here's why I'm not losing weight or not getting the thing I want. And not to let it, make you feel bad, but to give you data to act from. So,
and here's why I feel like I'm fighting with hunger.
And it's your body biofeedback telling you what to do.
Yes.
And it's not because you eat Oreos and Lorna Doones all the time, and that's why you're hungry. It's you've got everything dialed in, and your body is actually saying, no, I'm hungry. And the data is now correlating, giving you the confidence that, okay, I'm not going to balloon up in weight. Just
so that's number one.
I just said one, man. I just said your biggest. What are you doing here?
That's it.
I'm just kidding. What's the next one?
And no, there's no real next one. It just reminds me of how our coaching is so valuable and so informative. Just to be able to discuss this, come to a reasonable foundation to build upon for the next step, for the next couple of months, knowing what's going to happen in the fall. It's a beautiful feeling, a solid feeling of now I know what I'm doing and both of my feet are on the ground and I'm ready to go.
Good. That's what we want, Allan. That's why we're doing these calls. And then people can hear what the process looks like as well. Just so everyone knows, this is a prize that Allan won, let's say, as a result of a challenge he did. He did that was the rapid fat loss challenge, right?
Yes.
That he was voted the winner. And we do these challenges. And if you're voted the winner, you get a free call like this, or you can do it record for the podcast. But more importantly is the support that you get. Like Allan mentioned, sometimes you need a third party to talk to you. And, if you don't have a lot of money and you want to join a free Facebook group, we have that. Come in and say hello and talk about your issues. We were just having a chat in the Facebook group chat today. Somebody was asking about protein and they said they were eating amino acids. And I kind of challenged them and said, you may be wasting your money. You could just eat real food and get great results. And, it's those little things that people just need that third party perspective. If you want a little more, if you want more custom support, check out Physique University. It's 2 weeks free. Allan's been there for a while because he doesn't want to leave. We've got coaching calls. You've got nutrition plan. You got workout programs. You've had a lot of great people. Allan, is there anything else you want to add about that or anything else before we sign off?
No, WPU is a great forum we share ideas, we share support, we share recipes. It's just a great place. It's a great forum. It's one of the things I check out in the morning while I'm having my coffee and see if anybody posted from the previous evening. It's just a great structure. And it's a great way to access some of your coaching too, Philip.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I'm in there every day. You guys can tag me. We've got the courses. We've got all the fun stuff. But anyway, not to make this a pitch for it, but that is how Allan ended up on the show today. And I want to thank you, everybody, for checking this out. Allan, thank you so much for being open about things. You know, you're great at digging in to the details, but also tying it to your why and tying it to the history of what's important to you. And this is an honest conversation that is going to help people. So I thank you so much.
You're welcome, Philip. You're welcome. And thank you for everything you do for the fitness community.